This is your Professionals and Animal Lovers Show. PALS for short, the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show, the Professionals and Animal Lovers Society. We believe that the bond between animal lovers is incredibly strong, and we want to support one another in rescue and in business so that everyone wins.
And advocacy so that everyone wins, especially the animals.
Whoa, whoa, bad Tommy D. Foul play. Right. Rescue, animal advocacy, and obviously business. So everyone wins, Val.
Especially the animals.
There we go. We got it that time. We're only like 125, 130 episodes into this thing, so we're just things out still. We do three major things on the show. We learn, we educate, and we advocate. And Val, you've taught me so many things. We just mentioned about foiling and different things like that. So many different things I've learned. So we have a friend here today who I only met for the first time a couple weeks ago at our recent animal advocacy, animal welfare lunch. Shout out to the team at Palmer's in Farmingdale for hooking us up. 60 some odd people there. Ed Ra, the whole thing. Stuart Kroll, welcome to the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Tommy and Val. Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled to have you. Red is my favorite color, so I dig the red shirt. Gang, if you're not watching and and only listening, got this nice sharp red golf shirt on. So Val, let's take it away. How did you first connect with Stuart? There's a lot to talk about. Take it away, Val. How did that connection happen?
Yeah, sure. So if memory serves, and Stuart, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe I met you at one of the first cat protests, like outside of the Oceanside landfill. That would be in 2017. And that's actually how I first got started advocating at the town of Hempstead. And I give you a lot of credit, Stu, because you don't live within the town of Hempstead, but because of your passion for the animals, I saw Stuart for years at almost every single board meeting. I think there was a stretch where Stuart, myself, and Diane Madden were pretty much at every single meeting. And although it was a frustrating experience, you do have that bond with other animal lovers. And sometimes we would even go out after the meeting and grab some pizza at Novita. So I miss those days in a way.
It was nice.
Yeah, it was a good run. But certainly, our love for animals and our frustration with the people in power not using their power to help the animals it's a very long, grueling, and frustrating process to get anything done. But now Stuart has been advocating within his own township, which is one town over, the town of North Hempstead. And that town of North Hempstead it's literally referred to as like the Gold Coast of Long Island. It is one of the wealthiest pockets in the country. And so I want to get into this, Stuart. Tell me how that started. Like what precipitated you to start advocating over in the North Hempstead Township?
I mean, basically, I just found out, which I had no idea was the case, that they had no cat shelter. They have a dog shelter, and they call it an animal shelter, but in reality, of course, it's a dog shelter, and they don't admit cats. And this has been going on for about 20 years, give or take, starting under John Kamen, who at that time was the Democratic supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had started to construct a cat shelter, and he, for whatever unknown reason, decided to pull the funds, and the contractor sued the town and collected $130,000.
Oh,
So,
and whatever legal fees were involved, right?
yep, yeah, I'm sure. And,
Of
you
course.
know, it's gone on under, it's basically a democratically controlled town at the moment. It's Republican. But in any case, whatever the administration happens to be, nothing has changed for the cats. So you can't really blame it on one side or the other. It's just people just basically don't care. That's the bottom line.
So let's go backwards for a second. Again, I know that you live in the town of North Hempstead, and I know that you have been incredibly active for a long time, and that you go on like these long hikes, like into the woods, and you feed stray feral cats out there, and you do a lot of trapping as well. Can you speak? Let's identify the problem, right? Which I know you've done many times at the board meetings, but for our audience, Why do they need a cat shelter?
I mean, the town is basically like most towns. They're basically overrun with stray cats on the street. And unlike Hempstead, where we certainly know there are numerous problems with the shelter, and people in charge of things that shouldn't be in charge of them and what have you, here there's basically nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I mean, they've had a once a month TNR program, which after fighting for about 2.5 years, we've managed to get a voucher program to enhance that, which is of some use. I think they funded it with $40,000. It's of limited use, but it's better than nothing. And even with the once a month program, as opposed to what was an everyday program in Hempstead, I think now it may be 3 days a week,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And on top of that, about 3 different times, the feral cat coordinator at the dog shelter, which is where they fix the cats, has quit. So because they don't want to pay her a full-time wage with benefits. So in any case, each time that's a delay of 3 or 4 months where there's not even anything for that month aside from the voucher program. So there are no cats being fixed. So it just keeps multiplying and multiplying. And this is what we're left with. It's basically everybody's on their own. I mean, I know numerous rescuers that have found cats that have been sick, spent $5,000 out of their own pocket, to help.
Wow.
It's a very unfair situation.
So
And,
let me
and,
ask
and they're
you,
loaded with money.
yeah, well, right. Let me ask you this question. I know that you had been foiling for certain financial information. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, what have you been looking for and what have you discovered?
Well, basically, I've been looking to try to find out how much money is actually in the capital reserves. They have to keep, I believe, 10% by law in the reserves. What actually happened, and of course, this is just your typical political like machinations, right at the last possible day, the Democrats had proposed a tax cut to come out of the tax reserves, out of the excess capital reserves. The Republicans waited till the last possible day, where had they waited one more day, the previous budget would have automatically been adopted. Democrats were proposing 20%. On the last day, the Republicans came up with a 25% plan, not using the capital reserves, but rather hypothetical revenues, such as anticipated revenues coming from the golf course, from golf course revenues and what have you. So all that, the bottom line is what I foiled was the fact I tried to find out how much money was actually there, and I foiled it twice. I never got a concrete answer. But I know that at the moment, I know there's an excess of $30 million sitting there. So there's certainly tens of millions of dollars in excess of what they're required to keep there by law.
What would it cost you to do but the fact that you're saying what do we have, right? So what's in the kitty? So no pun intended.
Pardon the pun, right?
All right, pun intended. All right, pun intended. I wrote that joke this morning. Nobody knows how witty I am. But like
That was perfect.
that was perfect. So I don't know if as I don't know if everybody is as allergic to my dad jokes as I am at this.
Tommy, I lost you for 1 second. A call came in. I deleted it, but I
It's
lost your picture.
We got you. You just tap your screen and you should be right back on with us. Hopefully we'll get there. We see you. You look like a bit frozen. Like
Okay, I got you.
There
is
you
it
go.
cold where you are? Are you chilly? You look frozen for a sec. We're all good. So that was my little cat joke. But what is available from a resource perspective? And then I would say that's great. Okay, if you think and and you've done the foiling, and I'll ask Valerie to say what foiling is in a moment or two for folks who don't know just yet. But if there is that 30 million or excess of tens of millions of dollars, how much would it cost to put together a shelter from your own knowledge and projections and maybe things you've read or just the other community of people that you're involved with?
Well, there are different ways to go about doing it. I mean, excuse me. What they did a few years ago, at first, they did basically a request to see what could be done at the existing shelter. They spent 33. They did a feasibility study, which I think cost them about $33,000, and they determined that 30 some odd cats could be put into the dog shelter at a cost of a couple of $100,000 in renovations. No actual amount was specified. That's not really. First of all, the existing dog shelter is built on a landfill.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that's not exactly the ideal location to begin with.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of ruling that out. Another possibility they could do is basically the same thing as the Ledoux Sanctuary, which is in Oyster Bay, which basically the town could buy a house, probably retrofit it to admit cats, and that the town would still own the property.
Got
So
it.
basically what they'd be left with would be whatever the maintenance costs are.
Okay.
Oh, you know
Or
what's
they could build a separate cat shelter. So there are
right?
basically a couple of ways of doing this.
Yeah, and you know, Stuart, I don't know about North Hempstead, but I'm sure it's not an isolated incident. But do you remember at one of the Hempstead meetings, they were talking about how many, what are they called? Basically abandoned and uncared for ghost properties?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so there is a large amount of those within the town of North Hempstead, and I'm sure that they exist in every township. You know, it's just a matter of time before somebody passes away.
yeah.
The rest of the family is either non-existent or not involved, and you know, those properties become neglected
Mhm.
and overrun with bushes and weeds, whatever. I'm just thinking maybe somebody can bring up those properties and then that would save the town money because you know what I'm saying? Like it's an opportunity.
well, I've gone over this with some of them, and
Okay.
they said they're saying at least at the moment that they haven't referred to ghost properties, but there are no town properties available that are not being utilized, which
Well, all right.
I
So
personally don't believe, but that's another that's
yeah,
another issue.
I have trouble believing that too, just for the sheer fact that
yeah,
so many people are not going back to the office and things like that,
Yeah.
and you think there'd be a lot of consolidation. But I'm checking out. I've got to shout out this organization you just mentioned because what a beautiful home it is. I didn't know anything about this right in Oyster Bay. Shout out to my friend Danny Taylor, rep in Oyster Bay, by the way, our very good friend. But the Patricia H. Ledoux Foundation. And it says tour the sanctuary. I could share this, but we should get them on the show, Val. But it looks like they've figured it out up in Oyster Bay for sure, and it's beautiful. I mean, why don't I just share it? Because this is and they. But Stuart, do you know much about this organization? I assume they are their own nonprofit for the fact from what I'm reading here. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I think that the foundation had about $4 million at some point, and I guess they had ownership of the house, and I guess they've got enough money, to maintain whatever they're doing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's precedent for this. I only bring it up to shout out the organization because they're obviously doing good work. But Val and Stuart, check out like some of these pictures of the home. It looks beautiful. I mean, even
yeah.
um,
I lost you guys for a sec.
we're still
Well,
here, so you'll find us when just tap your screen again. You should be good. How about now, Stuart?
No, someone left a message. I'm trying to get back here. Let's see. How do I get back to this?
ooh, yeah, if it look, this just goes to show you case in point that it can be done, it can be well run, it can be kept clean.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
And yeah, I mean, it is beautiful. That reminds me actually of a cat cafe I visited once. But you know what? I also wanted to ask you, Stuart, because I don't think that that we've talked about this.
But
But
let me hold you guys for 1 second here.
okay,
I'm having a hard time hearing you, and I need to get back to you. So how do we?
okay.
Okay,
There
I
you
think we have
go.
you
All
now.
right, there you go. So my question is, when you first started going to these town board meetings, was it different than versus now? Like in terms of the board and the elected officials, how they received the advocates, how they responded to the advocates, like,
I found there are a lot of similarities. I mean, having dealing with Gillen and the dismissive way. Your volume has gone down a little bit, brother. I'm just trying to get the volume back up.
okay, I'll talk louder.
Okay, no, it was louder before something happened, but anyway, I tried to adjust it on my end. Dealing with Gill in the dismissive way that she got rid of us is very similar to the way that the Senate, refers to people.
Now,
When
who's
she,
the Senate? Time out. You have to make pretend that not everyone knows who we're talking about because
right, Jen DeSena is the supervisor in North Hempstead,
okay,
and she's finishing out her second term, and she's going to be running for a third term in November.
okay,
And when she first ran, I had a 45-minute phone conversation with her, in which case she expressed an interest in a cat shelter. She even signed an online petition calling for a cat shelter.
wow. Oh
And
my
now, of course, she just basically somebody asked her at the last board meeting why she signed that petition, since she's obviously the one hindering our efforts. And her response was a very condescending one, as you'd imagine. She basically just said she didn't realize what was involved in the job, and she's looked into it, and it's basically very expensive to build a cat shelter.
Jen, anytime you want to talk about it, Jen, you want to come on show, I'm Tommy D. The show is called The Professionals and Animal Lovers Show. Tommy D at pal-show.com. Jen, I've met you. I met you at a couple of nonprofit events. Jennifer DeSena, if you want to come on the show, Valerie and I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about it. So we will actually, I'll send the video over to somebody on your team. We'd love to connect with you because
You know what I don't understand? I don't understand this. Okay. Comparatively, when you take the town of North Hempstead with their $30 million plus capital reserves fund, and you compare that to other townships, even within Long Island, okay, you're hard pressed not to find other places with less money that don't have a cat shelter.
Every other town on Long Island, aside from Center Island, and I don't even know if you consider that a town, it's like a little blip as far as I know. But anyway, every other town has, even impoverished areas or more impoverished areas, have somehow managed to do it.
So what we
So,
really need is some kind of a if we could get a couple of numbers, like strong numbers projected, how much does it cost to either build from scratch, take over a house or a property, whatever, um, and really say, let's put this into perspective, right? Let's say it cost $1 million, round number. Okay. Well, they've already spent $130,000 that they had to pay that contractor who got sued. They had to pay $33,000 for the feasibility study. We don't know how much they had to pay in legal fees, but let's just say right there, you're at roughly 250 grand. I mean,
well, well,
and,
here's an
and
interesting
there's and
fact.
there's grants that they can apply for.
That's what I was getting to. There's something called the State Companion Grant Fund.
Yep.
And I've spoken to Dr. Chico, who runs that he's the administrator of that fund.
I called him yesterday on a
Did you?
separate
That
issue. Yeah.
he was very helpful. But North Hempstead in 2019, now you can apply for up to 500,000. In 2019, the town received 200,000. They never got the work done, so then they had to return the money.
Oh my
In
God.
2014, excuse me, in 2024, they again got 200,000. That money went towards an HVAC system at the dog shelter. They spent a total of $1,050,000 this year on the HVAC system,
What?
850,000 of which came out of the capital reserve.
Oh my God.
I want to say, here's the thing. I got to jump in for a second because this to
You
me,
guys, I've lost a bit of your volume there. I don't know
yeah.
why.
So here's the thing. This to me is sheerly a lack of education and understanding, Stuart, Valerie, and all of our listeners, because we talk all the time about TNR programs. I threatened that Valerie and I are going to get the money together and get an RV to go around and do TNR here on Long Island. And then you talk about the shelter being on the other side of this problem. To me, we hear this all the time about hoarding houses and feral cat communities, and Valerie talks about in neighborhoods smelling like, I would say nitrous or cat pee, the whole thing just stinking, right? And I just think these politicians may not know the full story. And I'm not saying, Stuart, you haven't been out there at town meetings because I know you have. And I know I've been down to town of Hempstead, not North Hempstead, but I've been down to these meetings. So I know sometimes these stories fall upon deaf ears. But that's really what we're doing is deputizing community, getting people to learn how to fly, getting people to advocate. And I think it's incumbent on us to tell these politicians what's up. And I'm not saying that you and people haven't done it, but it's more of us. It's more of us getting activated to get out in these conversations.
Unfortunately, I agree. It's our job to get people motivated, to get people, aware. And I mean, we've had tons of articles. We just had one come out in Newsday a week or so ago. We've had articles in the Long Island Press. We've had all kinds of different things. We've had Harborfest booths. We have protests before every board meeting, out in the street. We've done everything, within reason, some things without being within reason to try to get people aware.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people seem to be, somewhat lacking in motivation, to put it like nicely.
Yeah. Yeah. Val?
Well, I think that if, from all those times going to the board meetings and being there, I understand that it can be frustrating to be able to round people up and get them to show up at a board meeting. However, I also know, like, I can speak to my own schedule now. It's very different than from when I was living in New York. And I've been trying to get myself to a local board meeting, and the past 2 months consecutively, I wasn't able to get there. We were short-staffed. I couldn't make it. And all I could say is really stick with it. I would suggest to have even a monthly Zoom call outside of the municipal meeting to get people rounded up in an easier way. They don't have to travel. Where do your board meetings take place? Is that Port Washington?
No, it's in Manhasset.
Oh, it's in Manhasset. Okay, so still not the easiest place to get to, right? So if you're on the other end of the town, or I'm not making excuses, but I am empathetic to the fact that a lot of people work, a lot of people have families, a lot of people do both, and I don't have children other than my fur babies, but it is really something that we have to be patient and understanding with. We can encourage people. I mean, Tommy, I remember the first time I asked you as a long shot if you could get to the Hempstead board meeting at night. And I remember you were like, you had to leave someplace early and from Suffolk County. That was your like fourth consecutive meeting. And not for nothing, this was a 7 p.m. meeting. This is the tall order. You got to sit there and wait for God knows how long before they call your name to speak for 3 minutes at the
Well,
microphone.
North Hempstead is different though.
Okay, but regardless of that, let me just say this. And he has 4 kids, and he has a wife, and he has a dog. So it's a tall order after a long day of all of that. He did it. But all I'm trying to say is, it is we the regular advocates that you and I, Stuart, know that we used to sit next to at every board meeting, et cetera, we have to consider their phase of life, right? So Diane Madden's at retirement age, doesn't work, right? You at the time were not active with the commodities and you could show up. I had a company, but I was able to make my own hours and block out those meetings for myself, right? I'm just saying we
Second
have to
question, Val.
allocate
Second
some
question for you.
some empathy, right?
I hear what you're saying, and I
Yeah.
think so. I would ask you because this is a great conversation. How do we get people to be either angry enough or affected enough or compelled enough to do this? Because if it was on your block, and you've told me about this, about blocks where there's the cat house and where there's a lot, or there's a feral community in the alleyway, people are affected by it, right? Those people are more inclined to get to the freaking 7 o'clock meeting and get you
Right.
3 minutes on the microphone and have your talking points and maybe make the phone calls and stuff like that. So I, I become more and more affected every time we talk about this when there's more and more cats that are out there and the communities just continue to grow. That affects the population of human beings here. It affects other animals. It affects different things, right? So I think one of the ways we do this is through education and more of this show and more putting this in front of folks. But uh, are there other ways to plug into the system how about this? Like, what if you mentioned a Zoom meeting, right? Like, what if there's a Zoom meeting that people can all get together and I can't get to the meeting at the town hall or, up in Manhasset, but I know Stuart can. So Stuart's there representing a dozen of the Tommy D's of the world. Like, is there a way to crack that code, Stuart, where you can go, hey, I'm here on behalf of your constituents, folks up on the dais. I love that word dais when they're up there all bougie. I haven't been to the meetings up there in North Hempstead, but I've been down to Clavin, where Clavin's at, right? We know. Don, hey, it's Tommy D. So the thing is this, like, what about how do we put together? Again, I never loved petitions. I didn't think they were super effective. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But just where you have a coalition, I'm not just here as Tommy DeMisa or Stuart Kroll or Valerie Heffron, but I'm here representing this contingent of people in your district. Like, talk about how do we do that? Is there a way to do that? I don't know if there's an answer right now.
It's difficult to get people, I mean, first of all, let me just tell you that unlike Hempstead, where you'd have to sit there for 2.5 hours to speak for 3 minutes, in North Hempstead, public comment is first.
Oh,
Well, that's
oh,
So
that's nice.
you're in and out of there, in 40 minutes.
Okay, that's good to know.
Which makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, more attractive.
But in terms of getting people to do, like you mentioned, what's her name, the woman before, who seemed interested in coming. she's been at a couple of board meetings. What it is with most people, everybody likes instant gratification.
Mm.
I like instant gratification too. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with the towns, it just doesn't seem to work that way.
Mhm.
And people, they get discouraged. In North Hempstead, they know this has been going on for a very long time, and people they just don't think anything's going to happen, so they give up before the fight even starts.
Well, what I would do, and of course, everything's easier said than done. However, I know you have a good friend who can probably do this. I would create some kind of a short video with messaging attached to it. You guys have a page, I believe it's called North Hempstead Needs a Cat Shelter.
Correct. And that's run by
And
Roberto Benelli, who lives in,
yeah,
well, I've got to give him a quick shout out. He lives in
hang on one
Woodside.
second because I'm talking about him. So hold on. Roberto can assemble a short video with some narration and some really heartstring pulling photos or video. And you guys can tell the story. This is what I would do. Run it on that page and boost it. The other day you were toying with the idea of a potential mailer, and those are very, very expensive. So what I would do is I would take a fraction of that money, take, $200, $300, and I would target every community in North Hempstead. And you could probably do that for around $10 a day or $15 a day for 7 days. You could set your own budget. That's the point. But let's be honest, the way people get their information today is through social media and Google. So if you can get out there, I think you'll get a lot more people that way.
I'm willing to try, whatever may work.
Yeah, no, I know you are. I know. I don't know why I haven't thought of that sooner, because the irony is that my husband and I were looking into some marketing and advertising opportunities and what have you. And I really realized, I said, I don't see the opportunity anywhere else being as strong as just running some social media ads. That's just a fact. I can't, whether it's a billboard or whether it's a newspaper. I mean, I don't think it would be that impactful. Anyway, I do want to ask you, just explain to me really quickly about this board. Okay, so you're saying DeSena is the supervisor and she is up for reelection this year. Is she a Republican or a Democrat?
She's a Republican.
Okay,
At one point, she was a
hold on.
registered Democrat. She still may be registered as a Democrat, but she's running as a Republican.
Okay, and the other board members are all on the same party, or?
You've got a 4-3 Republican advantage on the board.
Okay, so there's a 4-3 majority. All right, well, that's
I
interesting.
mean, the
And
way that I read the situation is that I mean, they all obviously vote as a block. Everybody does nowadays. But I mean, I think she's the one that's really stopping this.
does it work similarly to Hempstead in that every council person covers a specific district, or is it more like
Yeah.
on Oyster Bay? Okay, so who is your council person?
My council person is actually, let's see, what's her name now? I'm trying to think of her name. Christine Lou.
Christine Liu. Okay. All right. Have you met with her?
I've met with her. I've met with Marianne Del Monte. I lost your picture for a second here.
Yeah, he's just showing the
website.
council people on the screen. We'll be right back.
Okay. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't
All right.
see you.
Well, the most important thing is anyway that we can hear each other. So Christine Liu, you met with her and you met with and another council person, right?
Right. I've met with all the council people at different times.
Okay. And what was their overall response?
You know, basically they're worried about the cost of the whole thing. And, I mean, some of them I've run into. I ran into, Robert Troiano, who's a Democrat. He seems to be a decent guy. I ran into him a few times, believe it or not, in the supermarket. And he basically told me that he doesn't think that the Republicans will break away from DeSena. They vote as a bloc. And if she doesn't go along with it, it's not going to get done. So basically, I've come to the conclusion the only way to do this is to get rid of her.
Oh, or
Interesting.
make an alliance, or make a friend. You know, we don't always have to. I'm
Well, he tried that, I believe. That's what he
yeah.
said. He
We've
started
tried
off
to
that
we've
way.
tried to make friends with them. We've tried to do we you know the funny thing about this is there's a woman named Gloria who actually was a personal friend of the center when this all started, an elderly woman, a very sweet, classy woman. Anyway, we thought that might help with the center, and we can't even get a meeting with her. She won't even meet to discuss it. I mean, it's a very condescending attitude that they're working on project independence, and there's a lot of money going to that. And I've pointed out a lot of the programs where they're wasting money. They've got a planting project where, like with rain barrels and things that are basically of very little use to anybody. Whatever it is, I mean, they just don't seem to want to spend the money on this, whether they don't want to justify it to the taxpayers, they're afraid of that, or they just don't think it's important. Whatever combination of reasons, they just don't want to do it.
You
Let
know
me
what's so
ask you.
wild is that I don't even think it would be crazy expensive. I mean, I'm looking at I look at these kitty cat cafes who basically operate as shelters, and they do a lot of great work, and they're the Shabby Tabby in Suffolk County is not a municipal shelter. She is a for-profit and she makes money. She helps all these animals. They charge to be able to, be around them, play with them, and but people are happy to do it because they know that they're socializing these animals before they get adopted. They sell things like merch and coffee. And look, I just I can't reconcile in my mind that it's one of the wealthiest pockets in the country. This is like Beverly Hills of New York.
Yeah, no, I agree, and
Okay.
I've told them that too about sell that they could make money. They could potentially have like a fundraising dinner. They could sell equipment for animals there. They could get animals adopted, get adoption fees. I mean, there are a lot of ways to generate revenue.
Yes, there are. And therefore, I don't accept money as the excuse.
No, no, but it's about, to me, this is about pain. If something hurts enough and it bothers people enough, it gets resolved, right? So maybe they don't know how bad the situation is. I didn't know how bad. I still don't know, Valerie, even you teach me about this stuff, and I learned from people like, all the folks that were at the lunch a couple weeks ago. You know, I, I want to know. So, Stuart, on, how many cats are affecting the community? How many cats are there that should be in shelters? I mean, you go out in the woods. When you go out in the woods, I mean, are you just seeing cats all over the place? Like, what exactly is that like?
No, but without mentioning the particular location, because technically we're probably not supposed to be feeding there,
Hmm.
but it's a beautiful place in the woods in Port Washington. And my friend and I go there, and she deserves most of the credit because she does it more often. But in any case, it's costing her in excess of $1,000 a month to do it, to feed the cats.
Right.
And it's walking a mile and a half every day, carrying a very heavy pack, with a big gallon jug of water, 25 cans of food, bird seed for the geese on the way. I mean, you know, it's just a lot. I mean, another friend of mine actually feeds at Holiday Farms, which was a big article in Newsday, I think a week or so ago. It came out in the Sunday edition. And she's been feeding these cats for years. One of the cats had a mass on its leg. She took the cat, ended up spending about $5,000 on it to have it removed.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the cancer ended up coming back, but she did the right thing to do. I mean, the morally right thing to do. And these are things that, I mean, if you had a sick cat in Hempstead and you brought it to the shelter, not to praise their shelter, obviously, but I mean, the cat would get medical attention.
No,
You know,
that is a significant difference though. And I personally feel that it's unfair with knowing the amount of taxes that people pay in both townships that those services wouldn't be available. I mean, I don't know what their overall budget is, but again, in the number in my head is 30 grand capital reserves excess. Okay. This is a very easily resolved problem. With Hempstead, yes, they will take the animals, they'll give it medical attention. And I can't imagine them not doing that with a $6.3 million annual budget. I mean, you have to show where you spend your money. But to sit on money when you have a clear problem and it's only going to get worse, and it's really unfair. Most people, I don't think, even if they're good-hearted people, I don't think most people are going to take in an animal to a vet knowing that it's going to cost them thousands of dollars, and that's not their personal family pet.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, and there's no, we've shown countless, examples to them and gone over countless things with them. And it's funny, there's another woman there who's actually somewhat friendly, to our cause, and we were trying to explain what was, going on to her. And she didn't really respond to it, much either. I mean, she said we wanted to set up another appointment with us, so she told me that her calendar was busy for 6 weeks. We then had Harborfest in Port Washington, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
We gave out a lot of literature. We had a phone-a-thon where we had everybody call and or send emails expressing dissatisfaction. All of a sudden, I got a phone call from her about setting up a meeting. So the point is, they do respond to public pressure.
Yeah,
That's what
Yes,
you need is pressure,
that's what
that's the only thing.
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately most politicians just simply want to be reelected. I mean, that's what they're interested in.
Yes, and also contributions. Question. So all of those people that you had the literature passed out to and also making phone calls, have you guys been capturing their information? Do you have like an email list or anything to be able to stay in touch with them?
Yeah, we do have a list.
Great. And do you send out that like monthly invitation to go to the meetings and all of that?
We haven't sent it out. I mean, a lot of the time I was calling people, but it sort of got to a point, to tell you the truth, where I felt like I was like, their mother or something. It's like, if you want to come, you should come. I mean, it's
Well, I hate to tell you this, Stuart, but sometimes people need that because, again, we don't know what else is going on in their lives. But a monthly email, look, phone calls in general, they are the most time consuming, right? Out of all the forms of communication that we do have.
right. They are. I mean,
And that's a tall order. But sending out a monthly email saying the next meeting is this time, this date, this place,
well,
we,
Roberto does a very good job of that on the North Hempstead, Facebook page, because he's constantly posting, snippets of videos, updates on different things.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
Roberto's great. But if you
right.
have their email addresses, it's just another touch, it's another drip. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
it's
we no, we try to keep in contact with everybody and push them, and we do get some new people that come to some of the meetings, and we try to even go out to eat with them afterwards to try to get people involved, socially, just to sort of make a camaraderie out of it.
yeah, well,
That we're all fighting for a common cause.
Yeah, well, that's
right.
what it is, right? People get connections, they have camaraderie, they want to work together. I'm sharing right now the Facebook page, North Hempstead needs a cat shelter.
Yeah.
So everybody should plug into that and certainly get involved. I'm liking it right now.
All
So
right, terrific.
yeah, so and there's just earlier this am I reading this correctly? Rally for cat shelter in North Hempstead. It says 3/4/2025, and then it says April 1st at 3 p.m. Did that already happen, that rally?
No, well, the 3/4 rally happened. The next meeting is Tuesday the 1st, but it's not. It's at 5 o'clock.
Okay, so if you're interested right now to speak timely, today is March 21st, 2025, and April 1st of this year, there's a rally. And oh, this is cool. They show the look at them, Val. Look how high they sit up, like you know,
Yeah.
like up on the pedestal. I love that.
Yeah. Stuart, I just want to show you, tell you something really quickly. So I clicked on that event. It says Tuesday, April 1st at 5 p.m. But when you click on it to get more information, it still says March 4th.
All right, I'll let him know that. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, just let him know. I'm sure he can fix it very easily. But the other thing that I want to let you know, and this is just a small little thing that could help, but whenever there's an event that's posted, every single person that's in your group should be individually invited. You have to like send out the invitation. If you just post the event, there's a good chance a lot of people won't see it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people are bombarded with so many different things, and
Yeah.
I hear your pain, Stuart, that it's another thing to do, but like people count on the leadership and the follow-up to really get them motivated. And we got to have,
Harassment, harassment.
well, that's one thing too. I mean, but that's like saying you
I'm
trick
all I'm all for harassment.
you're all
Yes.
all right. If you're into harassment, then you're good. You should be fine. Harass
Well,
away.
just yeah, to give you an example, for Tommy and I to fill that room at Palmer's for the lunch, it was a combination of things. It was certainly social media. Certainly it was an email blast. And it was phone calls and text messages. As you know, I think I can't remember if I called you or texted you, whatever, but it was reminders. And I'll tell you something, this is the world that we live in.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I thought it was a
There was
great event, by
someone.
the way. I mean, it was nice to see people getting together and,
Thank you.
you
Yeah,
know,
and there was actually someone who I've been friends with for a long time, and she bought 2 tickets about 2 weeks before the event, or maybe a week before the event, and she totally forgot. So this is what we're up against. We are up against the world of, it's literally called the attention economy. Everyone's trying to get our attention all the time. As I'm sitting here, probably similarly to you guys, I've gotten probably 8 or 9 text messages. My phone keeps lighting up. You know what I'm saying? I can't imagine how many emails have come in since we've been here, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to encourage you, because we have to really stay in front of each other in order to be effective.
and no, believe me, this issue, aside from the obvious way that the issue is just, it's terribly unfair to the animals. It's also unfair to the people. I got into a big hassle actually with, I was called out for being obnoxious, which I guess is probably often the case, by one of the representatives that's actually friendly to us for mentioning a name of somebody. And well, I just told the truth, but I guess maybe it wasn't the right forum for it. But in any case, the people themselves, somebody died in Port Washington, and he was basically living in a hoarder house. He left 6 friendly cats. He made no provisions, of course, for the cats. And the people, that were trying to deal with his estate basically wanted to throw the cats on the street. An elderly friend of mine who's about 85 years old was going there at 7:30 in the morning to feed, and we
Mhm.
did manage to get all 6 cats placed. It wasn't easy, but we did manage to get it done. What I said that she objected to was the fact that they were more interested in the money than helping the cats, which was true. But
Clearly,
but but the
clearly.
point but the
It's
point of the matter
illegal
is
to
that there's
dump.
so many people
Right.
like that. It's not just the cats. People lose sight of that are affected. It's the
Yeah.
people that have no provisions, and their socialized, friendly cats end up on the street. They get into a nursing home. They get sick, they die, whatever the case may be. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, now what happens to your cats?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, we've had somebody on here talking about cat trust and animal trust, and I mean that's the stuff, gang. That's another education piece, Stuart. We do 3 things on the show: we learn, we educate, we advocate. But that education piece you just pointed out, not everybody thinks about this. I mean, let's be honest. Not everybody has a will in place to take care of their estate or take care of their minor children if God forbid something happens to them. So
Most people do not.
most people do not, right? So not to say this is a lower tier thing, but if you don't have something to take care of your estate and you don't have something to take care of your minor children, you're probably not thinking about your cats and dogs and other reptiles and different animals and things like that, right? We gotta, that's education stuff. Val, that sounds like we should have some people back on about pet trusts and things. And
I
what
just did that in my store about a month and a half ago.
what store? What is that?
I invited a local, I'll tell you later. I invited a local estate and trust lawyer, and we invited, our customers, and we had a very nice turnout. And he talked about what happens if you do pass away and there's no plan in place. And it's awful. And whether they go to the shelter, which is of course traumatizing, and they've already been traumatized, or they're thrown out into the street.
Literally thrown out into the street.
Yeah, good luck, right?
Figure it out.
Or
You've been kept in a house your whole life. Go figure it out.
yeah,
In the
Right,
wild.
and I see that. I mean, I'm on these animal posts, like I see them all day long, which sometimes I'd rather not. And I mean, I see that same situation constantly, whatever the reason is, whether somebody dies or, some bullshit
right.
reasons like allergies happen or, my grandmother doesn't like cats anymore. Whatever the reasons are, valid or not, this happens to these animals all day long.
Yeah, and then there's another point of it too, and I don't want to dwell on this too long, but there is also a financial responsibility. So even if someone that you have a good friend or whatever, and they assume responsibility for your pet because they know they're doing it for you, like out of an obligation to you, and but now that person is taking on all the food, all the vet bills, and they don't many times know what they're even signing up for. Anyway, let me circle back to something, because I know we have to we have to go shortly. Um, I really have to ask you, because we have talked about it. For the first time ever, I've heard you toy with the idea of throwing your hats into the political race. And
I have considered that, and
yeah,
I do have to call again the Board of Education, the election board, to
yeah.
find out if there is or there isn't a deadline for getting the signatures that I would need.
Yeah, well, I would encourage you to make that call today before 5 o'clock. I mean, look, I don't know off the top of my head, but all I know is this. I get very excited whenever someone who is not a politician, an outside voice, especially when they're an animal lover, is toying with the idea, of running a campaign.
Well,
Um,
realistically, and I'm trying to be realistic about this thing here. I mean, it's very difficult. It's almost inconceivable. The people that have won on a national level, that are not politicians, are people that have, huge name recognition, whether it be Bloomberg or Trump or somebody like that. I mean, to win the race, my original thought, I mean, you never know what can happen. My original thought was that basically to draw enough votes away from DeSena to get rid of her. Because I think if we get rid of her, we can get the
Well, look,
shelter.
that is a political strategy, and sometimes it works. I mean, we saw Diane Madden splinter enough votes that Gillen lost. I mean, no one can convince me that that was not effective because when Laura Gillen ran for re-election, she lost by 1% of the vote. When she ran originally and won, she won by 1% of the vote. So what was the difference there? It was the animal vote. I'm 100% positive about that. No one else can and I know it too, because I had literally over 300 TOH residents and contacts in my phone. And I personally spent days leading up to the election texting everyone, reminding them to vote for Diane Madden. And anyway, but I'm just saying, like, it can be an effective
No,
strategy.
it can make a definite difference. And I
It
mean,
reminds me of curling, like when you're knocking out one of those things to make way for your next thing. It's like a chess move.
yeah, no, I look, you know what? I'm interested in getting the shelter, regardless of what needs to be done to do it. And to be honest with you, aside from the fact that obviously I'm trying to help the animals, and incidentally, 40% of pet owners in New York State own cats.
Right.
So there's a large block. I mean, that's what I keep focusing on at these meetings. There are a large block of people that out there, forget about just the cats, that people that own these cats that could be in potentially, very difficult circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's become a personal issue. I mean, she's made it to me, a personal issue. It's beyond anything else. It's like, I don't like being, talked in a condescending, arrogant manner to, as though I'm an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't respond well to that.
Yeah, Stuart, and I'm with you on that, and we talk about that a lot on the show. And I just made a joke when I was sharing the Facebook page. Town of Hempstead needs a cat shelter page. They sit up on this podium like raise what is this, old England? Like they're way up there. I mean, who are you people? Like I'm being obnoxious because it is obnoxious. Like you're gonna stand 3 or 4 feet above us and look down on us. Like it reminds me, I love this movie with Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of
Right,
Fleet,
the
right?
barber of Seville, whatever.
Yeah.
Fleet Street, right? Which, London, like this whole thing. But like I remember the judge, and they're like up in like merry old England up on a podium. Who are you people? Like, are you freaking serious? Like,
Well,
come on, Val. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying, right? Like, and then the condescending to people like Stewart, who's trying to make the world better. I'm tired of it. It's nuts.
One of my favorite,
I agree with you 100%, Tommy. That's
yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I do too. And I don't know what happens sometimes when people get elected. I don't know if it goes to their head. I don't know if their true colors are just coming out. I think it's the latter. But one of my favorite moments of any kind of advocacy, I don't know if you guys saw this, but whether you like him or not, that guy, comedian Jon Stewart, was a staunch advocate for the 9/11 first responders. And for years, he was trying to get every congressperson to sign off so that they could secure their lifetime benefits and health care.
Yep.
So they have this clip of him, brings me to tears every time, but he went to Congress And he was so visibly disappointed because he had literally 911 first responders behind him, some of whom were dying. They didn't look healthy, and it was clear that they were not going to be around for years and years, right? And he was like, his like lip was quivering, and he was furious because a lot of Congress didn't show up for that item or whatever, that meeting agenda item. And he ripped them. And he said, this whole room should be reversed. You guys should be sitting down here. These guys should be sitting up
Yeah,
there.
no, that's
Looking
100%
down at
true.
you.
Yeah.
It was very passionate, and he was so spot on. Anyway, but
It's about
we should
not
get
to,
rid of the daises, 100%.
like I'm telling you, and I'm thinking about this. First of all, I know exactly what you're talking about, John Stewart. Talking about the James Zadroga bill, which is an absolute travesty of justice that our first responders didn't get that, and they had to keep going down there. And these men and women were sick and were dying, and
Yeah.
not even cancers. People are still dying. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago. This it's this guy's an FDNY guy, retired, and he's got this laughter podcast, got this whole comedy thing. Val, we'll talk about it another time. But I got on that podcast, and it's all about this community. And John Stewart was disgusted, as he should, like
Yep.
disgusted. And I know some of the people in some of these organizations. I've had them on Philanthropy and Focus, and it's like, how dare you? Like that was John Stewart's attitude. Like, how dare you? Like,
Yep.
and that we have to come down here and fight what these people are owed. And that takes me into our veterans and what our veterans are not given in this country. But this is a whole other show.
You know what? I mean, just to say one very quick thing
Yeah.
on that. I mean, because I was on my way there. We worked in building number 4. But I mean, the point is, it's like, the people that died, and there were certainly plenty of them from Cantor Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
And, it's a tragedy. There's no question. Sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. A guy gets drunk and is on the wrong side of the road. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
But the first responders were people that knew, like veterans, that knew they're always in harm's way.
Yep.
They knew that.
No,
And those
it was abominable.
their
Right.
death benefit was $100,000 max, and the other people were getting $1 million.
Yeah.
And what I'm striving for here is in support of what you guys are saying, and Tommy with that raised dais, and oftentimes in addition to the raised dais, there's a lot of like leaning over and whispering, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's even laughing. And these people, their constituents, I would say this, they're not there because they have nothing better to do. They have they have nowhere else to be. These are people that are compelled, to try to make a difference, and they're taking time out of their personal lives, or away from work, or volunteering, or hanging out with their pets, or getting a pedicure. I don't care what it is, going out to brunch with your friends. There's a million other things that they could be doing, and they're there for free. And here we are when we go, and we're watching the people that our taxpayers are funding their salary, and they're up on that dais looking down at us. And a lot of times it doesn't feel like they're paying attention.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, they're playing with their phones. They're whispering, like you said, amongst themselves. I mean, that's what happens. And you're right.
Well, if you run, and I've spoken with several people about this point, but if you do decide to run, I think that's an important talking point, is because a few years ago, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the village of Hempstead, not the town of Hempstead, part of their platform for, I forgot which party it was that flipped the seats, was the lack of respect for the taxpayers and constituents. They emphasized that. They had clips of videos that showed the disdain, the lack of response, and sometimes even they make fun of people. We've seen that, Stuart. Sometimes they even make fun of someone, who it's terrible. It's
But
just,
you saw what Clavin used to say to me. I mean, he used to say, "Have a nice trip back to Great Neck."
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
do.
funny. That's cute, Don. Really cute, Don. And it was cute, Don. Yeah. Again, you wouldn't be acting that way if we met in the neighborhood, gang. Like, let's be honest. You're sitting up on that pedestal, and you're a big, funny, tough guy. But again, you're out of line. You're out of line, sir. You're out of line.
You're
And
right. If you met those guys somewhere, that's definitely true.
And I'm not a big tough guy,
Especially
Stuart.
now, because it's election season, so everyone's gearing up to put on, this affable, nice guy act, you
Right.
know?
Val, something you said, most people don't know. Most people haven't gone down the town of Hempstead. Most people have not gone to town of North Hempstead or even your local village or whatever. Most people haven't done it. Most people haven't gone to Albany and checked out this stuff. I'll tell you, listen, it's not lost on them either because I've been up there in Albany when they're talking about, putting like road safety, traffic safety rules in place. And I'm watching people do that 99-cent book you get filling out the word search or whatever. I'm up there in Albany watching this shenanigans while people are talking about this stuff. Gang, I mean, what are we doing here? I'm hot now, Val. I'm amplified now. I'm excited. I don't know what I'm going to do after this call, but the show. But the point of the matter is, Stuart, if you were to run for something, right, and people knew about what we're talking about, like the rudeness of these politicians, these elected officials, I should say, I want to see if I ever did any of this stuff, and I can't see me doing it, Valerie, as much as it would probably be good, but I can't see it but I want to go in there with like, if I won like one of these town supervisor things and I became that guy, I would go in there with like a sledgehammer and knock down that thing, and everybody's on the same level. Everybody's on the same level. Like, what if somebody took the
I love it.
what if you did that? What if one of you all had the courage to do that and get rid of the dais? Some of your friends would be like, oh, they can get us now. We're not on the same level as the regular people, right? Guess what, gang? You're just regular people who we put in these positions. That's what it's about. It's about making change. Stuart Kroll, I'm excited to know you. Thank you for being here. Leave us with something before we go.
First of all, let me just say I appreciate, both of you guys, taking the time and the interest, to do this. And, I think it was hopefully you got something good out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
My own mother is encouraging me to run, by the way.
As it should be.
Yes, that's good. Well, we will listen. We'll have you back on when you make that declaration that you're going to run, and we'll have you to talk about your platform and all that. How's that sound, sir?
That sounds great. I hope I can get a copy of this, which I assume I can. And
Yes.
we'll work it out. We will get. I'm not sure you're going to be able to access it from how we started out today,
yeah,
but I will do.
I'm thinking of teaching some computer courses.
No, not.
Yes.
You better run for something because you can't. You're not running an IT department. That's for sure.
No, I don't. I think you're right about that. But anyway, I had a really good time with you guys. I hope you had you enjoyed it, and I really appreciate what you did.
We did.
Thank you for all you do for the animals, Stuart.
Terrific, Tommy. It's nice meeting you, Val. It's always a pleasure.
Great to
Thank
see you,
you.
Stuart. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with this. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take care.